Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're located today. Firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is Eliot Harper, and I'm a principal architect at CloudKettle. Now, I've been working with Salesforce Marketing Cloud for almost a decade now. I've written books on Marketing Cloud, and I'm very active in the user community. I was also recently inducted into the Salesforce MVP Hall of Fame, and it's a privilege to receive this lifetime recognition. And more recently, I've been building my expertise in Salesforce Data Cloud. And today, I wanted to share some of my key learnings and considerations when planning to implement the platform. Now, before we begin, I want to explain this is a live webinar, and I'm really keen to answer your questions. But to help the session flow, I won't be pausing to accept questions during my presentation. Instead, you can post your questions to the Q&A panel, which I'll review and answer at the end of the session. It's also important to explain that I won't be teaching you everything about Data Cloud or how to implement it. Data Cloud is an enterprise-level platform, and to cover either of these topics in any detail would take several hours. Rather, this webinar is primarily orientated towards integration architects. That is, I will explain core concepts that you need to understand to provide context to platform integration. Then I'll go on to explain approaches and considerations when planning implementation. I'll also be sharing some additional resources that I've created to help you to learn the platform, and also a template for planning platform implementation. In today's session, we'll be covering the following topics. Well, let's begin. Now, I want to begin by briefly orientating you to key platform concepts and functionality, which will help you quickly get started in planning for platform integration. Data Cloud is a purpose-built platform that enables organizations to connect all their customer data at scale. Whether that data resides in a mobile app, a data lake, a data warehouse, a Salesforce platform, or is collected from user interactions on your website, Data Cloud provides the ability to ingest data from multiple sources, either as a batch process or in real time. Then it harmonizes the data into a structured canonical data model and applies reconciliation rules to unify individual records to a single profile, which adapts to a customer's activity and behavior in real time. Then you can analyze, segment, and operationalize or harmonize that data and activate the data, automating customer experiences across Salesforce products. Whether that's, injecting a contact into Marketing Cloud Journey, or converting a lead in Sales Cloud, or perhaps creating a case in Service Cloud, Data Cloud can fulfill marketing, sales, and service automation use cases. Let's now discuss some platform fundamentals in a bit more depth. You might already be familiar with this notion of data lakes and data warehouses, but if you're not, a data lake provides a convenient repository to store data quickly, where you can deposit raw copies of data files without needing to perform modeling at time of ingestion. But the problem with data lakes is they can quickly become data swamps, flooded with outdated and incomplete data. The net result is that it can be hard to extract data from data lakes, which aren't optimized for querying at scale. On the other hand, a data warehouse provides a central data repository that's specifically optimized for analytics and reporting purposes. Data warehouses tend to be more performant than data lakes, but they can form data silos, which means they're often incompatible with other data sets. And that makes it hard for users in different parts of an organization to access and use that data. Data Cloud, however, is built on a data lakehouse. A data lakehouse is a data platform that merges the benefits of data lakes and warehouses into a single architecture, so data teams can accelerate their data processing, as they no longer need to straddle two disparate data systems to complete and scale advanced analytics, like machine learning. Now, Data Cloud is not a substitute for CRM or any other platform, as it's never the first touch point in a data lifecycle. You still need a platform or platforms that generate a unique identifier to register that first entry point for your data. Whether that's an order, maybe a support case, or a customer record. And once this identifier has been established, then your data can be ingested into Data Cloud, which in turn provides a fabric layer that orchestrates all your data from different sources. And unlike transactional data stores, records in Data Cloud are fluid and designed to provide that moment-in-time insight into an individual's profile, their intent, and their behavior, all of which can change at any time. Now, unlike other data management platforms, which can provide a golden record or super record by aggregating profile attributes into a single record for an individual, Data Cloud establishes relationships from one or more individual records to create this notion of a unified individual. Now, this is quite a hard concept to understand, but the net result is that lineage to the source data is retained, enabling tracking of historical data flow over time. So details of where the data originated, how it's changed, and its ultimate destination is completely preserved. While many Salesforce products are built on a common core platform that uses the same database architecture, Data Cloud uses a very different architecture and technology stack, where data is processed in a linear fashion. The first layer is a data source, which represents a platform or a system where your data originates from. These sources can either be Salesforce platforms, object storage platforms like Amazon S3 and others we'll discuss later. Could be ingestion APIs and connector SDKs to programmatically load data from websites and mobile apps and other systems, and SFTP for file-based transfer. Next, we have a data stream, which is an entity that can be extracted from a data source, like orders from Commerce Cloud, or perhaps contacts from Sales Cloud. Once a data source is connected to Data Cloud, data streams provide paths to the respective entity. Data streams are then ingested into a data source object. This object provides a physical staging data store that contains the data in its raw file format. Next, we have the data lake object, which is the first object that's available for inspection and enables users to prepare their data by mapping fields and applying additional transformations. And finally, we have a data model object. Now, unlike data source objects and data lake objects, which use a physical data store, a data model object enables a virtual, non-materialized view into the data lake, and the result from running a query associated with this object is not stored anywhere. Now, I've given a very high-level explanation of the platform's data model, and there are many more concepts to understand, but knowing how data is ingested and ultimately activated in the platform provides some context to data integration. I've authored this ebook, which goes into more detail in some of the concepts and others in the platform, which you can download from the resources section on our website, cloudkettle.com. And I'll also be sharing the URL to this resource at the end of my presentation in the chat window. Well, now we understand the fundamentals of how the platform works, let's now discuss the system landscape. From Salesforce clouds to third-party services, any of these platforms contain data. So you need to audit your technology stack and identify where these data sources reside and what type of data they contain. And you also need to identify other platforms in your technology stack, including infrastructure and integration platforms, as these might be used to facilitate data exchange or build pipelines to data sources. Additionally, you need to understand how data flows between your systems and platforms from one transfer point to another. The best approach to visualizing this is by creating an architecture diagram, similar to this one, which provides a visual overview of systems and how they interact with each other. Additionally, a data flow diagram, like this one, illustrates how data flows from one application or transfer point to another, so that you can analyze how often data is transferred between each touch point. You'll probably be relieved to hear that these types of diagrams are beyond the scope of this session today, but they are an important step when preparing your data for platform integration. Now let's discuss the different options for ingesting data to Data Cloud. Firstly, the Salesforce Interactions SDK enables the developers to capture interactions for both known and pseudo-anonymous website visitors. Supported events include profile data for an individual, e-commerce data, and consent tracking to capture when a user provides consent. And similar to the Interactions SDK, the Engagement Mobile SDK, which is available for both iOS and Android mobile platforms, enables profile, e-commerce, and consent data events to be tracked in Data Cloud, in addition to mobile messaging and app-related behavioral events. Now, while this session is not focused specifically on API integration, I also want to make you aware of all the other integration options, so you can choose the most suitable option for your data sources. Data Cloud includes a set of connectors that enable Salesforce data sources to be ingested into Data Cloud using a configurable interface without requiring custom development. Platform connectors are available for Commerce Cloud, Marketing Cloud Personalization, and Sales Cloud. Next, the MuleSoft Anypoint connector for Data Cloud enables data to be ingested from different databases, also SaaS platforms, perhaps storage resources, and network services through hundreds of pre-built connectors. Data Cloud also supports bulk importing and exporting data from and to popular storage object services, including Amazon S3, Azure, and Google Cloud Storage. Data Cloud can also import CSV files from SFTP servers. Now, the vast majority of enterprise platforms support exporting CSV files, which, when used in combination with a file transfer process, makes SFTP a ubiquitous method for bulk importing data into the platform. And finally, the Ingestion API enables data to be programmatically loaded into the platform, either in near time or as a batch process through support for both streaming and bulk data imports. For more detail on these different ingestion options and their capabilities, please refer to my ebook, which I mentioned earlier. And again, I'll be providing a direct link to this in the chat window at the end of my presentation. Now, let's discuss the different options to extract data from the platform programmatically. While Data Cloud enables users to search attributes related to an individual, specifically this notion of a unified individual profile, it's certainly not an analytics platform. And there are a number of use cases for querying and extracting data from the platform. I don't know, perhaps you want to augment customer data into your data warehouse with harmonized data, or visualize segment membership in an analytics platform, or even share calculated insights with different platforms. For example, you might be using Data Cloud to determine a customer loyalty status or points balance in a customer web portal. Well, Data Cloud provides a set of extract APIs to enable platform data to be retrieved from the platform, which include a profile API to retrieve customer information, a query API to support large volume data reads or interactive on-demand querying of the data lake, a calculated insights API to query calculated insights with selected SQL dimensions and measures with optional filters, and finally, a metadata API to retrieve metadata about data model objects and calculated insights. Well, as you can see, there are many different options for ingesting and extracting data to and from the platform. And to help you identify suitable ingestion and data extract methods, in addition to other considerations when planning platform integration, I've created a planning workbook, which you can download from the following URL at the bottom of this page. I'll also include a link to this in the chat window at the end of my presentation. This workbook includes example use cases to help you identify the different data sources that you can use in your organization for audience segmentation, personalization, and activation, as well as considering the different data extraction use cases. Now let's discuss the different options to extract data from the platform programmatically. Activation in Data Cloud materializes and publishes a collection of segment members along with their supporting attributes to a configured activation platform. And there are many different use cases for activating data in Data Cloud, both for sales, service, and marketing automation, including creating leads in a CRM platform or creating a support case based on customer survey data, perhaps. Maybe you want to activate target advertising from an ad platform or personalized web content and much more. And there are two options for activating data in the platform. The first is activations, which is created from a segment and essentially sends a payload of segment members together with attributes for content personalization. Supported activation targets are listed here. The second option is to use data actions. While activations publish segments to an activation target, data actions enable near real-time events based on streaming insights or record changes to an engagement objects. Essentially, this is for the Salesforce users on this webinar, is that think of it as a change data capture event. In fact, that's exactly what it is. And in turn, this can trigger a flow or orchestrate external processes. Supported data action targets are listed here. It's important that you identify your activation and data actions use cases prior to implementation, that is, during the planning phase, as this will ultimately determine what data sources you need in Data Cloud. And you'll find some sample use cases for both activations and data actions in the workbook I mentioned earlier, and I'll be sharing in just a minute. Now, finally, let's discuss some additional considerations when planning platform implementation. The first, and arguably the most important step, is to identify stakeholders and then document business requirements. as this process will help you to clearly and precisely define the scope of the project so that you can access the timescales and resources needed to complete it. You'll need to identify the key people who will be affected by the project, clarify exactly who the project sponsor is, as you need to identify or know who has the final say on what will be included in the project scope and what won't. You'll also need detailed, specific requirements that everyone agrees on. What's more, it will be considerably quicker and cheaper to rectify a problem or misunderstanding at the analysis stage rather than during or after implementation. Next, please take time to identify all your existing data sources and integrations, even if they're not going to be used by the platform, and then ensure that you have proper permissions and credentials to these data sources. The best approach to complete this is by creating an architecture landscape diagram and a data flow diagram, like the examples I shared earlier. And once you've identified your data source and an appropriate connector, protocol, SDK, or API to connect the data to Data Cloud, you'll also need to consider how that data is prepared and transferred for import. This is referred to as a data pipeline. And this is equally important, as poor pipeline architecture can really undermine the integration and, worse still, the integrity of your data. Now, anti-patterns often surface in pipeline architectures. An anti-pattern is similar to a pattern, but while it might appear as a working solution, it's the complete opposite of best practice. Anti-patterns typically arise when integration is done without any planning, design, or documentation. Let me share an example. Perhaps, a Data Cloud user configures an Amazon S3 connector to import membership data from an S3 bucket. Data is exported from a source system to that S3 bucket, but the user is unaware how long this data export process takes, and there's actually no validation of the exported data. Perhaps the data stream is running on a predefined schedule before the data has completed copying to the bucket, and even when the data file is available on the bucket, data fails to import as required fields are missing. Now, this is just one example of an anti-pattern, so you need to consider all main success flows and exception conditions of your data streams. Next, it's important that you carefully select your data model requirements. And in order to do this, you need to take time to understand the data model used in the platform and the different data subject areas used by the platform. So I suggest that you review the different Data Cloud entity relationship diagrams, which you'll find on architect.salesforce.com. Data Cloud uses a highly canonical data model with almost 90 DMOs, 88 to be precise, and counting. These are being added all the time as Salesforce go and incorporate additional use cases and also industry clouds. So you need to determine applicable DMOs based on the entities and attributes of your different data sources, and then choose whether you're going to adopt a standard, custom, or hybrid approach for your data model. And finally, you need to familiarize yourself with the platform limits and guidelines, which are clearly documented on Salesforce Help. So these include like the maximum number of fields in the data stream, the number of Marketing Cloud data extensions that you can ingest, which I believe is 20, the data file size limits and other considerations. Also, you need to understand the different factors that can impact billing, as usage of certain Data Cloud features impacts credit consumption based on the associated compute time. For example, batch calculated insights, running data queries, data storage, segmentation and activation, just to name a few. Well, that concludes my presentation, and thanks for attending today. I hope you found this content helpful, and hopefully you now feel more equipped to make considered choices when planning platform implementation with Data Cloud. And we now have plenty of time for questions, and I encourage you to post on the Q&A panel in Zoom, and I'll do my best to answer them. And I'll now go and take the time, let me just jump to the chat window here, to go and post those links to the resources. If you didn't make a note of them earlier, here you go. So do go and grab those, and feel free to download those resources. So let me go. We've got lots of questions flowing in here now, and I'll go and attempt to answer as many as I can. If I can't, I might need to kind of consult, and I'll certainly get back to you and ensure all questions are answered. And it's some great questions here. Let me go and pick a few. Let me start with this one. How do you surface data from Data Cloud into Sales Cloud? That's a really good question, because Sales Cloud isn't an out-of-the-box activation target in Data Cloud, but there are a few different approaches. One, and kind of this has been the main one until the recent release that I'll talk about in a moment, is to build Lightning Web Components that use one or more of the available extract APIs that I mentioned earlier to surface the data into a page layout in Sales Cloud. However, we're now starting to see more native integration across Salesforce clouds. And if you look at, I think it's release 246, the recent release that came out this month, you'll find plenty of new features which are focused on making data available in other applications. Specifically, you have data graphs that simplify the lookup of necessary data points, or data cloud enrichments, where you can copy or query data from Data Cloud into standard Salesforce components that you can then go and add to contact and lead record pages, I recall. Also, another new feature I saw in the release notes enables you to read data from industries clouds and Data Cloud, and then you can join multiple sources and filter out records and write results back to industries cloud. So I hope that answers that question. I'll answer this one here. Does Data Cloud work as a data lake, or it's only for ETL use? So a great question. It's kind of all of the above, and certainly it's much more than a data lake, or specifically a data lake house that I mentioned earlier, that combines the benefits of a data lake and data warehouse. Architecturally, this is really the direction that we're seeing that Salesforce are heading, is that, look, one of the issues that Salesforce has had for quite a while, kind of specifically in recent years with the advent of low data storage cost and this explosion of voluminous data or big data, is that Salesforce platforms such as Sales Cloud, that is core, or Marketing Cloud, which are built in transactional data stores, were never really designed to process big data. I mean, you can't go and store hundreds of millions or even billions of records in a Salesforce object and run a report on it, and process that data at scale. And so architecturally, the idea between Data Cloud is that it provides a single source to orchestrate and harmonize all your data from all these different data sources into a single point, and then you can go and activate that data from Data Cloud into Marketing Cloud, exposing that data into Sales Cloud and other Salesforce platforms. So what we're seeing is it's becoming the glue for all your disparate data sources, which can then be made available across Salesforce products. And so through Lightning, we'll start to see this kind of unified platform and interface where you're not logging into different clouds to perform different tasks or setting up different ETL processes to import data through kind of bulk API or kind of data upload into Sales Cloud and ETL tasks into Marketing Cloud. The intent is that they'll all be unified through Data Cloud, which really provides kind of an optimized architectural pattern. And also, I want to kind of stress, is it only for ETL use? No, I mean, it enables you to, and again, this is kind of beyond the scope of this session, but enables you to just more importantly segment and activate that data. Perhaps these are your IT team or marketers can actually create very, very powerful segments and kind of waterfall segmentation to define when an individual qualifies for segment membership. So you can visualize, perhaps expose these segments in Tableau, and more importantly, activate them to different Salesforce platforms or perhaps external ad platforms, websites, and others. Another question here, integration of website with Data Cloud to implement web use cases, abandoned cart, track events is a good choice. Assuming I have to choose between MCP versus Data Cloud, well, what a great question. So MCP, or Marketing Cloud Personalization, formerly known as Interaction Studio, this is the Evergage product that Salesforce acquired a few years ago, actually enables real-time interaction management on a website. So think of it for kind of website personalization. So just as Marketing Cloud enables you to go and send personalized communications across channels, MCP kind of extends these channels to be your own website, say an e-commerce website, for example, or maybe on financial services. And based on the context of a website visitor's behavior and what pages they're visiting, then you can go and change kind of banners and messaging and look for prompts. Maybe kind of someone's kind of moving their mouse to the top corner to abandon a page, and you can surface a modal to appear. So while Data Cloud and Marketing Cloud Personalization actually share the same SDK, that's the Salesforce Interactions SDK, Marketing Cloud Personalization isn't required in order to capture those different events from your website. So it's kind of completely independent. So I want to stress this: you do not need to have Marketing Cloud Personalization to go and capture these kind of profile data events and engagement events and consent events. There's this Data Cloud component within that web SDK, that specifically the Interactions SDK, to enable you to do that. If you want to then go and start personalizing your web content, and even personalize emails with kind of recommendations, then obviously you use Marketing Cloud Personalization for that. Another question: what's the difference between a data DSO and DLo when working with a platform? When you access records of both objects, the info is showed almost the same. So yeah, look, a DSO, this is the process of moving data into and processing data through the platform is a multi-stage format. The DSO is the kind of first entry point. This contains your data files in the raw file format, and it's from then you can use data transforms to normalize that data into a data lake object. So it's really is a kind of transfer step. I mean, you say they were identical. they might be identical in your use case, but they're not always identical. In that it just provides kind of, I guess put another way, think of a DSO kind of as a staging step. You need to get that data into into the platform, specifically this data lake area. So that's kind of why we have a DLO, then a DSO, then a DLO. Then we have a question here. What do you think of how Salesforce is selling Data Cloud? As partners, we find clients who already purchased it together with CRM and Marketing Cloud, and practically only with CRM and Marketing Cloud, all use cases are covered, with almost real time for some cases, with Data Cloud synchronization with the CRM and segmentation as activation is slow. Yeah, well, that's an interesting question. So firstly, can you perform use cases just by using CRM and Marketing Cloud? Yeah, I mean, technically, you might be able to perform some. I guess the main consideration, well, I guess there are two. The first is kind of architecturally. At the moment, if you want to go and perform kind of ETL processes and segmentation, and let's say you're bringing this data in through Automation Studio to perform those ETL processes and segmentation processes. As a Marketing Cloud uses Microsoft SQL, specifically Transact SQL, where database administrators can literally knock themselves out. I mean, you can go mad with kind of SQL and write highly complex SQL queries. But SQL isn't the kind of lingua franca of marketing professionals. It's a highly specialist discipline, which requires subject area expertise, and more specifically, it's actually can become difficult and expensive to maintain, and it also lacks agility. So if you want to go and add a field, or you want to go and tweak or change kind of your filter criteria for segment membership, it's quite challenging can be very challenging to do that in Automation Studio. Specifically also, Marketing Cloud is a blank slate. I mean, you have these notion of data extensions with, it's not a highly canonical data model. I mean, you can go and create it by coming up with your own schema and working out, for example, kind of a data use and data use purpose and legal basis, and just to mention kind of consent use cases, but you've got to go and create all of this from scratch. So Data Cloud, however, has this kind of highly canonical data model, kind of similar but very different actually to objects in Sales Cloud, where they've kind of already thought about that up front for you. Also, kind of more specifically, Marketing Cloud it isn't designed for storing volume as data. I mean, when you start to get into the realm of kind of transactional data, and you can have hundreds of millions of records, and you want to import these kind of at scale, and that's when you start to push the boundaries of Marketing Cloud. And typically we see imports fail because there's a time limit. Each activity has to run in an automation of 30 minutes, and other limitations. So we can, also Marketing Cloud has no concept of lock contention kind of, we can kind of have problems where if a field is removed or kind of not available in an object, it again can be kind of result in data integrity issues and kind of expensive to maintain. And this is Data Cloud is specifically developed with this in response, and kind of in future that we can expect to see architecturally all Data Cloud flowing through all data flowing through Data Cloud rather than requiring you to ingest it into automation. So this is kind of clearly the direction Salesforce are heading. Comments. Thank you. You attended one of my sessions. Great to hear. There's a question regarding Theorem analytics, and Data Cloud is different. Look, I'm no subject matter expert in Theorem analytics. So I can't answer that question, and you're anonymous attendee, so I can't get back to you. So that's really a question you can approach Salesforce with, or someone who has some more CRM analytics expertise. They keep on changing the name of these products, and it's been quite hard to keep up. Here's a great question. Any examples on why we might need to use MuleSoft for ingestion? You know, what a wonderful question. So, well, Salesforce provides kind of out-of-the-box connectors for and these data kits and specifically data bundles for ingesting data and connecting Salesforce products, such as kind of some standard objects, which you can customize and choose the different objects from Sales Cloud, and also bring in Marketing Cloud data extensions. The reality is that in a technology stack, you typically have multiple data sources. Maybe you've got running an event management platform. Maybe you've got data that resides in a data warehouse, or maybe it's a kind of from Facebook, or network storage services. So rather than kind of attempting to go and build connectors, just as we see with like CDP platforms out there, Salesforce already has these connectors through MuleSoft. So the MuleSoft Anypoint connector, or it has an integration for Data Cloud. So and in doing so, that you'll see in the interface, we instantly have all of a sudden access to these. I think, was it 200 or 300 different pre-built connectors from all of these different data sources. So rather than going and building your own, kind of using the API, you can use kind of the convenience of MuleSoft. But again, if your if your data is already available in S3, or maybe you're just using Sales Cloud or Marketing Cloud, then it's certainly not a requirement. It's just a kind of convenient option to connect your to set up these data streams declaratively, kind of using clicks, not code. Now, they're flowing in, so I'll take a few more questions. And I'm reading these out raw, so we'll see how we go. Hypothesis: the Data Cloud is primarily designed for existing customers, although it might be technically have the capability to ingest anonymous profile data from visitors or users. However, it is more appropriate to utilize this anonymized data in DMP or data lake storage systems. Do you agree? I kind of, Lisa, it's a really good question, and I've been kind of posing this to Salesforce about this kind of anonymous data, and how do we go and take the anonymous data and build kind of identify a known person from that data. And you need something to go and map that data. It doesn't and a DMP, this what was Salesforce DMP, and what did they change it to? Salesforce Audience Studio, I think. But that now has gone away, as we're seeing DMPs have, as the DMPs kind of use third-party data, specifically third-party cookies, and we're seeing this is Google through Chrome and Safari and others have kind of spelled out the demise of DMPs. So I think so Data Cloud, this is something it doesn't do out of the box today. No, they a couple of months ago, kind of someone at Salesforce mentioned, if you have use cases for identity resolution of pseudo-anonymous visitors, then they're happy to kind of explore that and kind of work on solutions with you. But yeah, I agree that it's really optimized for you say existing customers. This is more for kind of known individuals. So you have some different data points that maybe it's their email address or mobile number and kind of a mailing address, and through a process of deterministic or probabilistic matching and identity resolution in the platform. And then we're able to kind of stitch this together and say, well, these are 2 or 3 of the same person. But what it doesn't do, at least well today, is matching kind of unknown to known. This is a wonderful question. Does implementation require a Salesforce service team, or can this be done in-house? So it certainly doesn't require Salesforce professional services. Salesforce have actually been investing heavily, I guess, in the first instance, to equip and enable partners to help implement Data Cloud. But unlike some of the Salesforce features and platforms that we've seen kind of earlier, and just to mention one, I think what was predictive intelligence, for example, then became marketing cloud, Einstein email recommendations. This was kind of initially professional services only. It can certainly be done in-house, and Salesforce have really been throwing fuel on or gasoline on the fire by offering Data Cloud to all unlimited edition and plus and beyond customers, where you can enable this yourself. So it definitely doesn't require, it can be achieved in-house. I think the caveat to this is that you need to take time to learn the platform. You can't just enable it and then go and figure it out. You can't take shortcuts when learning. The good news is that the platform is actually very well documented. There's a wealth of information on not only on Salesforce Help, the Trailhead modules, and obviously that there's also a consultant certification and resources and trailheads and trails and modules to equip you to attain that certification. So yeah, initially the focus has been on partner enablement, but now we're seeing this extend to other resources to enable customers to self-serve. Yes, can you please highlight a few key changes that underwent an evolution when Salesforce went from Salesforce CDP to Salesforce Data Cloud? Yeah, what a wonderful question. It's been quite an evolutionary and somewhat confusing journey. No, this started out actually back in, I remember it so clearly, in Salesforce Connections back in 2018, which is the annual event, which was actually held for 8 consecutive years in Indianapolis, moved to Atlanta, then Chicago, and New York in between. But they, at that time, in was it June 2018, they announced Salesforce Customer 360, and this was the first name. Customer 360 actually was something else the year before, but Customer 360, this is going to be their CDP. Then in the same year, it was changed to Customer 360 Audiences, as they decided kind of Customer 360 replaced what was kind of the customer success platform to relate to kind of all the Salesforce platforms. And then we saw that change to Customer 360 Audiences, and then we saw that change to Salesforce CDP, then Salesforce Genie last year, and of course now this year Salesforce Data Cloud. And it's actually been quite hard to keep up, and an evolutionary journey. So, and they're all kind of one of the same thing. But is Data Cloud just a CDP? So Salesforce certainly, CDP was the initial use case for Data Cloud was on marketing automation, specifically CDPs. But and Salesforce has said this from the start. The platform is much more than a CDP, and it is. It doesn't just focus on marketing automation use cases, as I mentioned. It's also Sales and Service Cloud, and we're starting to see that trickle through. What was previously it was just used for visualization. We're now seeing that it's expanding that to other specific use cases through all of the kind of native integration features that we're seeing come into like the recent release. And I've got time to accept one more question, and we need to wrap up. And if you have more questions, let me actually go and post my email address in the chat window. Eliot.Harper, cloudkettle.com. And can Pardot be connected into Data Cloud? That is Marketing Cloud Account Engagement. Absolutely, it can. Specifically, I do recall there's a help article, and there is definitely documentation on that, on how to best achieve that that integration. There's not a specific data bundle for Pardot, but yes, you can. What else? Maybe I'll just take one more question, and let me just pick a. Gosh, there are so many now, kind of flowing in. I've just literally got another 40. So yeah, let me just close this one. Can you explain how data spaces can be useful in implementation? So data spaces is a new feature that's available in Data Cloud. Think of it as akin to kind of business units in Marketing Cloud, where we can have separate different environments in Data Cloud where we can take data from that are available in data lake objects and segregate this into different spaces. Maybe this is for you've got a data space for kind of a sandbox environment, or maybe these are different business units in your organization. They have different segmentation and activation targets. That's where data spaces come in. I think that you can have, there's a limitation to data spaces. It's either 5 or 50. Check out the platform limits and guidelines. Anyway, sorry I didn't get an opportunity to answer all your questions today. If you kind of still have them burning, then please feel free to send me an email. Thanks for attending. A copy of this presentation will be available and shared with you, all attendees. Again, I hope you found this webinar helpful and insightful, and I look forward to seeing, I hope you can join future webinars. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening. Goodbye.